right, thank you very much. That was a super cool sizzle reel. We don't have a lot of time, so let's just jump right in. First question, since this is a panel around fandom, I'd like to know from each of you, how big of a geek are you, and what sorts of fandom are you into?
Well, you say you don't have much time. I mean, where do I start? Jeez. I love everything. I'm in animation, so we watch films, read comics, manga, anime, everything. So it's a little bit of.
And what's your favorite of those things?
I'm a big Ghibli Miyazaki fan.
Nice, good choice.
I used to own a comic book store, and I have a Starfleet uniform. I mean, that's pretty geeky, right?
You're my new hero, is what you are. That's amazing. I'm going to speak really loudly. I love everything as well. I mean, I loved anime, Star Trek, comic books, you name it. So I feel like we're kind of all the super geeks up here, which is great.
Awesome, awesome. I noticed when I was looking at each of your backgrounds that all of you have worked as storyboard artists in addition to directing. And I'm curious, is that the path you actually need to take to get into directing animation? How do each of you get into animation?
I would say yes, because being a storyboard artist, I think you're actually a director in training, understanding how to set the camera for the scene. And for me, I started out as an animator in television, and when CG came, I wasn't so good at the technical side, so I wanted to keep drawing, and I just changed my course to storyboards.
I got into this completely by accident, so I don't say that this is how you plan it. I'm actually a formally trained fashion designer and costume designer, so I can build you suits, which is a useless skill now. But I did end up coming into animation because all my friends who did comic books ended up coming into animation, and I just decided to try because why not? And really fell in love with storytelling.
Actually, real quick, I'm going to jump into I noticed with Blue Eye Samurai, I know with you, your background, you actually did a lot of martial arts, wushu.
That's right.
Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
So being unsupervised as a child, I watched way too many action movies, and a lot of it were martial arts movies back from my old country. And always loved martial arts, and so I ended up learning martial arts. I started learning wushu, and everything I do and touch in storyboards has an aspect of martial arts in it. And I think I'm one of the very few storyboard artists that can choreograph a fight sequence because I understand martial arts and I understand stunt. And when Blue Eye Samurai came up, I knew exactly what I needed to do on that.
That's so cool. That's so cool. I'm sitting here learning as much as all of you. I wanted to do comics, and I quickly realized after graduating from the Kubert School that it is very hard to work under my own deadlines in a room all by myself, and that I preferred to be in a room with other artists and to learn from them. So I got encouraged through other alumni to check out animation. I had no idea that I could have gone to school for that. And I was very quickly addicted to just being able to tell a story visually with moving pictures instead of just comic panels. So I just instantly fell in love. It made sense. And storyboarding, very much so. I actually started as a revisionist, which is under storyboarding, and then you move up the line. And I feel like I encourage that for everybody because then you learn the pipeline and you also learn all the steps that you need to get to be a director or a producer. So it's very educational.
And could you explain what's a revisionist?
They're the person who has to hit all my notes. So you come in and you are either hitting new drawings that your director wants, or you are writing all the descriptions with something called action notes so that when you deliver your storyboards overseas, the animation studio can translate the written word as well in case your visuals don't make any sense to them. And usually that's a lot of very busy work that we will give to the entry person. You can write what's happening on the screen, and then I'll just check it. But yeah, it's a very important job because you end up being your director's right hand, so you actually learn the most, I feel like, in that position.
Okay, super interesting. Thanks for sharing that. Okay, so now let's actually talk about your most recent projects. X-Men 97, Blue Eye Samurai, Ultraman Rising. How did you get involved with these projects, and what about them intrigued you? Maybe we'll start with Jane.
I had just done my 8th or 9th movie with Marvel on Shang-Chi, and I needed a break. And just then, Netflix has got a hold of me and said, we're looking for somebody to supervise, direct an animated series. And I said, no, I don't do animation anymore. And they came back at me saying, but this is adult animation. I went, what? Adult? That doesn't happen in the West. So I decided to take the meeting and talk to them, and I read the script, and very, very few times in your life, in your career, will a project come that uses 100% of your skill set. So which is my martial arts, my directing ability, costuming, organization, pipeline, producing, everything. So I didn't say yes at first, but the thought of somebody doing it wrong made me say yes.
And I got to say, when Jane is talking about adult, I'm not sure if you all seen Blue Eye Samurai, but the first time we watched it, we had our 3-year-old daughter there, and pretty soon we were like, no, like covering her face. Yeah, it was, very adult. John?
I've been a collaborator with Shannon Tyndall since Kubo and the Two Strings as a head of story, which means running the story department in an animated feature. And this project came along where Shannon said, I have another project up, will you be my head of story? And initially, it was a project that was inspired by Ultraman, and it was over at Sony Pictures Animation. And of course, in Hollywood, there's always some creative differences that go on, and when that had happened, it was going in a direction Shannon didn't want, and so they canceled the project, but they let him shop it, and Netflix came knocking because they were already in conversations with the rights holders of Ultraman. So when that happened, he asked me again, and I joined as a head of story, and I got lucky, being elevated to co-director.
And I remember you had a cool story about Kubo.
I have many stories about Kubo, but I think what you're getting at is the title or the name Kubo actually was my father's, my stepfather's last name, and Shannon thought it was the coolest name. So, basically what happened was we were roommates, and I had my high school friends visit, and he doesn't know me as Kubo, where my high school friends do, and he was just like, why are they calling you that? And I explained, and then he's like, okay. I'm gonna name a character after that, and
then he named the whole movie.
Like 10 years later, he's just like, I think I sold a movie to Leica, and I'm calling it Kubo and the Two Strings. You have to work on it. I'm like, okay.
Wow, awesome. Emmett?
Yeah, I had a friend already working on X-Men 97, and they were still staffing. They were looking for a female director, and I was presenting female at the time. I'm now non-binary, but I was like, I wanted to jump on it. I was already a huge fan of the original series when it aired in the 90s, and being in animation, you start to, probably in a lot of the entertainment industry, you start to recognize when you're also being hired to be probably a studio's checkmark, especially as a person of color. And so I thought, well, okay, but I'll play along with this one because it's X-Men, and it's going to actually be a chance for me to put a perspective out there and to put a message out there. And so you want that check mark, I'm going to give it. And so I very much wanted to be a person on the show giving my voice.
Definitely. With Ultraman and X-Men, they've both been around for decades, right? Like Ultraman coming out of Japan, X-Men coming out of the States. On the other hand, Blue Eye Samurai is completely new property. Can you all talk about your respective IPs? We'll start with Emmett.
It's fantastic. X-Men has been around for over 60 years in comic book form, which kind of actually makes it one of the easiest things to adapt. It's always been a reflection of what's going on in society. So again, it's another thing where we can be topical if we want, we can be heartfelt if we want. It's very much a action soap opera. So it gives us a lot of room to play not only with emotions, but then to actually express animation in new ways, have fun with the visual art, do effects in exciting new ways. So it's really it's really one of the fandoms that I actually enjoy the most, simply because it has such a rich history, but it also has a very important one for how it reflects society.
John?
Yeah, for Ultraman, I mean, age of society, do I need to explain? But for those that don't know, Ultraman was created in 1966 by Eiji Tsuburaya, who is the co-creator of Godzilla. And I can go on and on about that history, but it's been a multi-generational, huge Japanese pop culture icon, and now it's, there's an opportunity to bring it to the West. They've tried many times before, but this time they said animated. And so with my animation background and being Japanese, I was like, really? Ultraman? And there was a huge pressure, of course, to live up to the legacy, but it was definitely like an honor to be part of it and to help expand that message that Ultraman represents and take it internationally.
Jane?
By the way, Ultraman was the first thing I ever drew as a kid, so there's love for Ultraman. Blue Eye Samurai did come out of nowhere. It was created by Michael Green and Amber Noizumi, and it's not from an existing IP. And the one thing that attracted to me to this IP was the fact that it's an opportunity for me as an Asian American to translate a culture. Though I am not Japanese, but the way we were raised, I'm from Taiwan, and my parents were raised during the Japanese occupation. So our family was raised very Japanese. In fact, a lot of my first words were Japanese, and I didn't know that. So I feel very comfortable in the culture, and I know how to represent the culture. It was an opportunity for me as an Asian American to translate a culture through my Asian American lens. That's particularly why all of our actors in our show don't have an accent. Because I don't have an accent, you don't have an accent, right? So we need to bring our own voices in there, and it was just such a great opportunity to do that. Also, the fact that we weren't an existing IP means that we could fail. And when you know that you could fail, you kind of go about it without any abandonment. I feel like X-Men, there's a lot of pressure to not fail. For Ultraman, there's a lot of pressure to not fail. But you don't know what Blue Eye Samurai is, so we could really push the boundaries. And if we failed, you guys never heard of us. That's okay. So we did push a lot of boundaries there. And in the end, very happy to see that we did find an audience and we did find our voice out there.
The big audience.
Actually, that brings up another question. For all of you around the voice acting, I noticed, like X-Men 97, some of the voice actors changed. You were just talking about how you tried to make sure the cast was all Asian for the voice actors. And Ultraman Rising, I believe they are as well.
Totally.
Curious if you all could talk about that a little bit.
Well, we had one white guy, because you have to have that one white guy, right?
I guess our one white guy might be Gary Watanabe, but no, we went out casting, and the first thing I said to the casting director was, for the voice of the film or the voices that if there's an accent, that it's all natural, like no one was putting it on, and so that's how we went forward with it.
And with yours, everyone was Japanese as well, right?
For the main cast, someone was. It's definitely Japanese descent. It was the goal.
And how important is that? Has that, like with Blue Eye Samurai, they were not all.
No, of course it was important. So we went out to Japanese American actors, and that's the thing about having more representation and films and stories out there. You're always going to get the only 10 Asian actors because there's not enough films for other talents or new talents to come in. So yes, we hit the 10 actors that we have. But imagine if there was a world where it's not unusual to have Asian actors in any of the parts. We would have a broader range to select from, right? So.
Absolutely. I mean, and then in X-Men, representation is so important that we wanted to make sure that we held true to that. The original voice actress for Jubilee was this wonderful white woman named Allison. And when we were going for casting on X-Men 97, it was like, we really need a Chinese American. We want to represent, all respect to Allison and the work that she established. But we brought in Holly Chow, and she fits the character perfectly. And she was also in Blue Eye Samurai.
And yes, very cool. So Ultraman, the fan base has traditionally been from Japan and Asia. Recently, it's made a very strong push into the States. I mean, for me, I watched a lot of Godzilla when I was young, but I actually wasn't that familiar with Ultraman. I mean, I knew it was like some guy who could turn into a really big superhero robot. I wasn't even sure what it was when he got really big. On the other hand, X-Men has been around forever. Comic books made the jump into live-action films in 2000, all the way up until Deadpool and Wolverine this year. Blue Eye Samurai basically came out of nowhere, won an Emmy, and has developed what I believe is a pretty passionate fan base. I'd love to hear each of your thoughts around the fans and the fandom communities that have sprung up around each. John, why don't you start?
Yes, with Ultraman, it's like, geez, how do I not disappoint the fans, especially the multi-generational, like our grandparents, were watching it, and so, it was about how do you approach the franchise and the legacy and protect its essence and what the message was for that specific hero, because Ultraman is unique. There's no one like Ultraman, and so the goal was to not be so like heavy-handed on the mythology of Ultraman in Ultraman Rising, but to let people discover Ultraman the way I did as a child, the way Shannon did too. So it was like bring in a universal theme as family or parenthood, and then let them understand who Ultraman represents, and from there, it's established a strong fan base and new fan base internationally. So I think I did the job. Tsuburaya Productions is very happy. So.
What's interesting is my dad, who's 80, he's actually watched not just Ultraman Rising, but like all the Ultraman stuff, like everything. Oh, wow. And so he actually is way more familiar than I am.
Did I pass?
Yeah, he definitely liked it. He's a fan. Emmett?
Yeah, I'm usually scared of fandoms. I've been on Twitter and I see how much they can destroy people. You look at what some fans on Star Wars have done. They've completely destroyed actors' lives, and it's not like that actor had any choice in anything that they were doing other than being the character. So I was really nervous. When we actually were kind of scared before the show came out. We were kind of prepping each other, like, be careful on social media. You don't know how this is going to blow up. Turns out the X-Men fandom is one of the sweetest, kindest that I've ever known. I mean, we met a couple months ago at the Uncanny Experience. It's this fan convention that's just dedicated to X-Men, where they take over a school, a building that looks like the mansion, and everybody can just go and be fans. You can cosplay, you can be a student, you can just go and enjoy it. And it was probably the healthiest experience I've had in a long time. There was no gatekeeping, there was no, I know this better than you, there was no judging each other because the X-Men are already outcasts, so why would we judge ourselves? It was so inclusive, and I just found that to actually really repair my trust in fandoms.
Yeah, I have to double click on that. Like, the Uncanny Experience is awesome. It's in Minneapolis. Mm-hmm. They're going to be doing another one next year. If any of you like X-Men, highly recommend checking it out. I thought I knew X-Men, and I go there, and I'm like, wow, I'm a noob. These folks are just, they're like, what? I don't even know what costume that is. And they're like, oh, there's a term that they have, like a deep cut or something like that, of like a costume that shows up in one panel in one comic, in the 60-year run or something like that. And that's the costume that they'll make. It was pretty cool.
I was gonna fail the X-Men 97 quiz. I was like, I can't keep up with these people. It's amazing, and it actually just made me feel really warm to have that.
When we did Blue Eye Samurai, I was thinking there's probably 7 people that will really enjoy it, and That's all I really needed to do, because for me, Blue Eye Samurai was a paid experiment that they let me do. And I just wanted to prove that this could work. I just wanted to prove that this needed to be out there. And if 7 people enjoyed it and it was a cult following, great. I was not expecting the fan response. And I think the most touching thing is having mixed race kids that were born here come up to me and tell me that they feel like they've been seen. And some of the story points that we touched and some of the emotions were exactly what they were feeling. And it goes to a lot of us who are Asian Americans who grew up here. And you don't have to be mixed race, but it's, here I'm known as the Chinese girl, and back there I'm known as the American girl. So it's like, what do you want me to be? So I have to be both. And being both, there's a cost to being both. And I think that's part of what we touch on in the story. And that's a sliver of story that we all know that nobody's talking about. So the fans' reaction to that, I think, was what I was really pleased with.
It's beautiful.
I wanted to jump in on some of the stuff that Emmett just talked about. I recently attended a Comic-Con panel where they had these actors who were also on the side, like comic book writers. And on the panel, they talked a bit about the dark side of fandom. And if you look at stuff like Snow White, the live action, there's so much negativity around that. For all of you, how have you generally interacted with the fans? And overall, Emmett's already answered this, but has the experience been positive? And have you ever had to deal with toxic fans? John, why don't you go?
Well, I've been lucky so far. I have not seen any toxic fans. Just hardcore fans, and they have a lot of questions. But I think I've been able to put enough things, Easter eggs in the film that kept them at bay. And of course there are negative fans out there. I just avoid getting trolled. That's all.
How are you interacting with them? Is it at the cons? Is it online?
It's at the social media. They might ask some questions, but I just like I said, I avoid getting trolled. So but the fan interactions is usually at these panels, Q&A panels or poster signings, and they've just been really great.
And sorry, one more question for you. In your case, with Ultraman being in a Japanese property, where are your fans? Where are you seeing them for something like Ultraman Rising?
We've been touring for the promotion and also the award season. So I was just over in Vancouver, and there were big fans over there, and or new fans that just discovered Ultraman through our film. So it's been really wonderful. Even Japan, I was doing a little talk in Japan, and of course they would watch Ultraman Rising. They're like, how's the Western version of it, But they're all happy. They were just really excited to be there and see me in person.
Awesome. Jane?
I would say the weirdest response fandom thing I got was online. I had posted this Mizu doll that I made for fun, and then got thousands of response, and one of them said, "Get your act together and work on season 2 already." So I thought, wow, okay, but that's good. I mean, that means they're really into it, right? But I would say most of the fans' response have been positive. You are always going to get trolls. I think you can't avoid that, and I think I try to be as gracious as possible, because we don't want to be in a space where we can't take someone else's opinion. But the thing everybody has to understand is how to do that respectfully, right? So I try to be respectful in dealing with Ultra Geek fans. And if you're going to get that mad about it, that means you care. Thank you very much. Next,
And in your case, have you ever gone to the cons? Do you see
Netflix doesn't do that.
Oh, really? But what about, do people cosplay as any of his
Yes,
characters?
I've seen so many cosplays. When we have done panels, I have seen Mizu cosplays, and it's really amazing. And you've made it when people have cosplays your show. So yeah, we are in the zeitgeist now. Yeah.
Welcome. No, I mean, like I was saying, I think fans can actually be incredibly wonderful. And the toxic ones, I mean, I think you just try to see people's perspectives. Is this person just being angry because they're angry and they're a troll? Or do I want to encourage them that if they're upset about certain aspects because we are an adaptation, I just try to be like, please, by all means, go create. And I'm not saying it in a snide way of, okay, go try and do it yourself, but as be creative. I mean, when I was a kid, if I wanted to draw a certain character in a different outfit, it's like I would go and be creative. I wouldn't, go and rant at the creator. I would use that to inspire me. So then I just hope then that people could actually just be inspired and feel empowered to go tell the stories that they want to tell.
Or then you say, how many times have you seen this? 4 times. Okay.
Oh yeah,
Thank you.
thank you. Yeah, I've stared at it for 3 years.
Yeah.
Okay, so I think we're getting close on time. Last question for each of you. What's next?
Should I go? Yes, I will be starting over at Warner Brothers. It's a bit of an overall deal. I guess I'll be in development. So I don't know what's in store for me in the future. And can I say it? I will be participating on the Blue Eye Samurai next year.
That's awesome. Ultraman,
You're next,
anything?
Emmett.
Yes.
That's a Netflix question for that sequel, yeah.
Jane?
And I'm running season 2 on Netflix of Blue Eye Samurai. This is why I need help. So
That
you,
is
John.
awesome. And also congratulations to Jane for winning the Emmy for Outstanding Animated Program.
Thank
Yes.
you.
Wonderful. Yes.
We had really stiff competition, though. We were in really great.
But it was great. It was such a good season because we were up against so much beautiful animation that it actually felt like a celebration. It didn't matter who won. So it was really refreshing to see that you could even have like Sovereign's Reign up, and you're like, here's another original IP, that there were original IPs up.
Original IPs. And this is why I don't think AI is going to take over,
I hope
because
not.
you need original material.
You do. You need humans behind it.
Yeah.
You do. And I don't know what's next. But after working on X-Men, I'm really excited that I can bring my voice to the table. In season 2, there's an episode that I'm very proud of that I can't talk a lot about. But for me, when I delivered it to our overseas Korean studio, I said, this is about Asian pride. So let's all enjoy working on this episode together, no matter how hard the schedule is, and I apologize. But so I hope that my next ventures still kind of continue that, because I think art for me is fulfilling when it has purpose, and that's what I want to continue doing.
And for all of you, are you still planning on directing? How do you want to move forward? Jane, for example, you mentioned you didn't want to do more animation. Like, besides the existing projects, is your plan to continue directing?
Well, it's not that I don't want to. It's just I left animation because I couldn't find a mature voice to work on. So having Blue Eye Samurai is refreshing to come back to animation to do. But wow, the schedule is really long. So I do want to go back to live action, and I think that's kind of the speed that I'm used to. But I do love the art form, and I can't ever see stepping totally away from it. So I'm executive producing Blue Eye Samurai right now, and also directing, and also designing and doing everything. I hope not to be this involved in a production. I hope to just be an executive producer to guide shows along. But I don't know. Second season's all I can see right now because I'm in the thick of it. So
That's very true. It's like love and focus on the show that you're on right now.
Yeah.
It's hard to look ahead sometimes, but I love directing because I love having a voice. Sometimes the higher you move up, you find that like you're encouraging other voices, but you miss drawing. So I do. I love directing, but I would hope to also showrun at some point, especially if it could be an IP, an original production. But yeah, I mean, really, it just depends on the project because anything can be inspiring.
Yeah, for me, I want to be a storyteller, whether it's animation or live action. I think live action would be an area that I'd like to look into and see if I can hold up. But yeah, that's my hope.
Awesome. Well, thank you all so much for this panel. I'm totally looking forward to X-Men Season 2, Blue Eye Samurai Season 2. Yeah, and if you all have any questions afterwards, I think there is another panel or screening after us, but we will all be at the cocktail reception and gala. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you.
Thank you.